Hey everyone, I'm Nick.
I'm Vic.
I'm Sam.
And I'm Andrew.
And we're NV Board Gaming. Today we are doing our review on this big hunk of box right here covering Vic, Foundations of Rome. It's a 1 to 5 player game. It is designed by Emerson Matsuuchi. The publisher is Arcane Wonders. We're going to go over how to play. Andrew's going to go over how to play it. Then we're going to give our reviews.
So like Nick said, Foundations of Rome is a game for 1 to 5 players. Plays in about an hour. It is designed by Emerson Matsuuchi and published by Arcane Wonders. I've already set up a 2-player game, so let me go ahead and show you how it's played. So a game of Foundations of Rome is going to be played over 3 eras, okay? And that's going to be kept track over here on these deed cards, which I'll go into more detail later. The way you're going to win the game of Foundations of Rome is the player who has the most victory points that you're going to be keeping track of here on this little tracker. All right, and so on your turn, each player is going to have an option to take 1 action out of 3 options. Okay, so you're going to have 3 options. Your options are going to be buying these deed cards that are over here for sale. The second option is going to be able to build out here on the board by removing your little markers and placing out buildings that you're going to have access to. And then the third and final option is going to be taking income to get you some money. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each of those actions and show you how those work. All right, so for buy a deed action, what you're going to be doing is you are going to be spending money in order to purchase a deed that is on the deed board. Now, each of these cards is going to relate to a spot on the main board where you are going to be buying lots. So what you're going to do is you're going to spend the correct amount of money in order to buy that card. So let's say I wanted to purchase G4. I would spend 4 money. And I would take this card, add it to my stack of cards that I'm going to have, and I would place out one of my lot markers out onto G4. Okay, after I purchase that, and my turn is over, these will all slide down, and a new one will come from the first era deck. Okay, so that is going to be the buy a deed action. Let's go ahead and move on over to the building a building. All right, so on your turn, the second action that you can do is construct a building. And so what you're going to be doing is you are going to be taking the lots that you have purchased and you're going to be able to build on those lots. So taking a look at your player board, and everybody's going to have one of these, you are going to be able to build these buildings. All right, depending on which one you build, you're going to get different benefits from them. So you have these more white-ish buildings at the top. Those are civic buildings. You have these that have the coins on them. Those are going to be commercial. And then the ones over here that are more of a yellow color, those are going to be residential. And you can see that because they have the citizens on them. All right, so what you're going to do when you go to construct a building is you have to build a building into a spot that matches the same size. So I obviously cannot build a 2-size building here because I only have 1 slot. So I couldn't do that because I do not own F7. However, I could build it up here since it has to match the same space. Okay, now I don't have to obviously use up both of them if I don't want to. I could just place a single building and do that. All right, now another thing you can do when it comes to constructing, instead of just removing a lot marker that you already have, is you can build over smaller buildings. So in a future turn, I could replace this 1 commercial building that I placed, and I could increase the size. Instead of the 1, I can go to a size 2 building, and so on and so forth. If I later on do this, I might be able to remove these and build an even larger building there. So you can always build larger buildings over smaller buildings that you have on the board, but you cannot remove a larger building to then build smaller buildings. That is not allowed in the game. So you can always remove multiple small buildings to build a larger. You just have to make sure you use up all of the spaces that were removed. All right. So that is how you're going to construct buildings. And each of these buildings, I'll kind of cover a little bit now, are going to give you some benefits. So I'll talk about this the commercial buildings when we do the take income action, but the other buildings you're going to see are going to be these residential ones that are going to have the citizens on them. And whenever you place a residential building, you are going to increase your marker on this population track. So if I had played this to residential building, I would then move up my population to a 2 or up 2 on the population track. And we'll see how that's going to factor into your score a little bit later. The other kind of buildings that you're going to see are going to be these civic buildings. And these buildings are going to primarily earn you, actually, that's the only thing they're going to be doing, is earning you victory points. Okay, so some might earn you a victory point for each citizen that is adjacent to it, and whenever they're talking about adjacency, it's going to be orthogonally, so up, down, left, right, no diagonal adjacency. And depending on what it is, this one can earn you 1 victory point for each building that is adjacent. This one here is going to earn you 3 victory points for each civic building. So again, other white buildings that are going to be adjacent. And they're going to vary in points because it could be 1, 2, 3. This one here gives you 1 point for each coin. So if I had this one here, right, this would give me 1 point for each coin. This is a 2 coin, so I'd get 2 victory points for that building. All right, so that's how those are going to work. All right, so that pretty much covers the construct a building action. Next, let's go ahead and look at the take income action. Right, and so for your final action, you can, or your final option, I should say, for your action is that you can take income. Now, when you take income, no matter what, you are going to get at least 5 coins. So it's going to be the base that you're going to get. However, you can get more than 5 coins if you build out your commercial buildings, and each one is going to give you a certain number of coins. Okay, so when you take income, you'll take that base 5 and you're going to add any coins that you have out onto the board. And what's nice is you don't have to stare at the board and try to find those buildings. You can simply look at your player board and add them up, and that's how much money you're going to receive. All right, so that's going to cover the 3 buy a deed, construct a building, and take income actions. So let's now talk about the end of the era and final game scoring. So as the game progresses, you're eventually going to run out of Era 1 cards. However, when you go to refill, you're not going to actually pull from Era 2. You're going to keep purchasing these cards, and players are going to continue to take turns until all of these deed cards are bought. Once all of these deed cards are purchased, everybody's going to get one more turn around the table, including the person that bought the last card, in order to take income or construct a building. Now, after you have done your final turn, you are going to follow some scoring, all right? And each one is going to be printed here on the board, which is nice so you don't have to refer to the rule book. So you're going to do this end of era scoring 3 times throughout the game, and after the 3rd era, you do the scoring. Whoever has the most points is going to win. Now, how are you going to score victory points? Well, first off, what you're going to do during your era scoring is first, you're going to gain any money that you have from your commercial buildings. All right, and this is going to be only true for the first 2 eras. All right, so I would look at my player board and I would gain that number of coins. Okay, then secondly, I'm going to gain victory points equal to the value revealed on my player board for my commercial buildings. So then I'm going to be looking at these little laurel symbols, and depending on how many they give me, I'm going to get that many victory points. So in this case, 5. Okay, and then you're going to adjust obviously your tracker on the victory point marker tracker here. Okay, after you do that, you're then going to look at any civic buildings that you've built. Again, like we talked about, they're each going to give you victory points depending on their criteria. All right, so they're pretty self-explanatory. Points for coins, points for citizens, points for civic buildings, and even points for being adjacent to other buildings, right? Pretty straightforward there. And then last but not least, you are going to look at your population. So if I pull up the population tracker here, you're going to see that red is on the 7 space and blue is on the 4 space. Now, the way the victory points are given out here is a little different. So what you're going to be doing is, let's say blue is going to score. So blue's score is going to be based on the first player in front of them. So blue would not get 4 points, they would get 7 points. So you're going to be based on the player that is next closest in front of you. And it's going to go so on and so forth. If you have a third player or fourth player, they're just going to score based on the first person in front of them. However, if you are the leader in population, you're going to score this position where you're at, so in this case 7, and each era is going to have what is called a population bonus. So whoever is in the lead in population after the first era is going to get 4 points. After the second era, they're going to get 7, and after the third era, they're going to get 10. All right, so those bonuses will go up from era to era, but that's how you're going to score that population track or the residential buildings. Okay, now the only change from era to era is when you get to the third and final era. Again, after all the cards have been purchased and you've processed through your scoring, what's going to happen is at the end, you're going to get 1 victory point for each lot that you have out on the board. So again, those markers that you place, your lot markers, if you haven't built anything on them, each of them are going to give you 1 victory point. All right. Then with your commercial buildings, instead of them earning you money, they're going to earn you additional victory points. So instead of 4 coins, I'll get $4. Or instead of four coins, I'm going to get 4 victory points. All right. And you're still going to score these victory points here. Okay. So instead of them generating money, they're going to generate victory points for you. And residential buildings and civic buildings will again score as usual. All right, and then whoever has the most victory points at the end of the game is going to be the winner. So that's pretty much how you're going to play Foundations of Rome. Now I'm going to take a couple minutes just to show you some of the different modules that come in the box. So if you want to step it up in complexity, there are options for you to do that. So let me take a look at those real quick. All right, so the box is going to come with 6 different modules here. All right, and you can mix and match these however you want. You can throw them all in. I don't think you can throw all of them in with this final one here that we'll talk about, but you can throw in all the other ones together if you want to. So I'm just going to briefly, real quickly go through what each of them are. So you have the player roles. This is essentially everybody's going to get 2 of these at the start of the game. Pick one that you want, get rid of the other, and these are going to give you either a one-time or an ongoing special ability or effect that only you have. So it gives you a little bit of asymmetry, but that's what this module is going to be. Just gives you a little bit extra for just you and gives you that variety of play. Here you're going to have these objectives. So all these objectives are going to be worth 8 victory points at the end of the game if you achieve them. You can either play with these being hidden or with them being public, and they each have their own little requirements, you know, what you might need to do. Like for instance, have the most buildings and or lot markers on the edge of the board. All right, if you do that, you are then going to get 8 victory points. All right, the next one here is going to be the monuments, which I think you should always play with, in my opinion. And this is going to have obviously a tray of miniatures for each of these buildings, but I'm not going to show those off here. If you'd like to see those, go check out our unboxing videos. But each of these, you won't play with all of them in a game. You're going to play with the number of players plus 3. Okay, and what they're going to do is each of them are going to give their own benefits, and they're going to have their own requirements in order for you to build them. So for example, here the Temple of Neptune, you have to own at least 2 civic buildings, and this building must be constructed on a lot on the edge of the board. All right, and they tell you if they're commercial, everything like that. So these are really cool, really nice little module there. The next one is going to be the invocation module, which is going to be these cards that you are going to randomly pick 9 of, although make sure you look at these before you add them in, because if some of them are going to correlate with other modules that you may or may not be playing with. So you want to make sure you don't accidentally throw in some that you can't actually use because they won't pertain if you're, let's say you're not using the stealing and trading module. All right, so these you're going to be purchasing. They're going to get shuffled 3 into each era. And as they come up on the deeds board, you're going to be able to buy them. All right, and each of them are going to give you a little special one-time ability, or if you don't use them, they're going to be worth victory points at the end of the game. So that's how those are going to work. The next module here is going to be trading and stealing, which is going to be pretty straightforward. With these tokens, you're going to be able to either trade for or steal empty lots from your opponents. And you can make all kinds of trades that you want, and they're not legally binding. So you can lie and say, hey, if you give me this marker, I'm not going to buy deed B7. And you could then go back on your word and buy the deed, and nothing bad's going to happen, right? So pretty self-explanatory, a little bit more conflict for that module, but that's how that one's going to work. And then last but not least is going to be the Will of Console, I believe. And so this makes the game cooperative. I'm not going to go into much more of it other than that, but you can play the game cooperatively if you would like, and that's where these little tiles are going to come into place. But yeah, that's pretty much it. You're going to have a bunch of extra cards depending on the number of players that you're playing with. It does play all the way up to 5, like I said, and you're going to use that side of the board. So if you're playing with a 5-player game or a 4-player game, you're going to be on this bigger side that has those colors and letters available to them. So yeah, that's pretty much how you play the game. I'm going to give it back up to the top so we can give you our final review.
All right. Thank you, Andrew, for showing us how to play the game. So you backed this.
Yep.
So what was your main reason for backing this game?
So I mean, I feel like Foundations of Rome is about as deluxe of a game that you can get when it comes to components. But it was a game that looked epic on the table, but the rules, it was so easy to access for any level of player. Like you could easily pull this out. It looked like an epic, big, elaborate game, but it'd be simple and easy for somebody that's new. And I think this is a game that I could draw people in to the table to be able to play and even introduce people to the hobby, because I think this would be a solid game. I like that whole, building up different, well, I got everything. So I pretty much got everything except for the solo mode for the game. But, the monuments, I got the sun drop that was on it and everything. And I love the gameplay, the simplicity. It plays in a quick time. I think like an hour is what it says on the box. And you can play up to 5. So, I mean, all around, I liked the whole flow. The look, the streamlined play, the only thing I didn't like was how big the box was. But, I mean, you can't go that deluxe and it not be big.
Did it take a long while for you to actually get the game? I wasn't sure how long the whole kickstarting process took for this one.
Yeah, so it did take quite a while because I backed this in about February of 2020. And so then you have the whole pandemic hit and there was just chaos. So it was about, I think, a little over a year late. So, but, when you're having that big of a game, there's a lot that goes into it. But Arcane Wonders did a really good job, like keeping everybody informed and letting us know what was going on and the different issues, because especially with shipping, you get a box like that and shipping now has gone up exponentially. It's crazy. And so trying to find a ballpark number for that has been kind of rough for them. And I know Robert has talked about that quite a bit, but he did a really good job.
Robert Geislinger? Right?
Yes, yeah. And so he's kept the backers well informed and everything, I thought, but yeah, it was late, but not to be unexpected, I guess, with everything that's been going on.
Yeah, it was a pretty epic game, too. Like, all the pieces. I can't imagine how long that would take.
Yeah. And so we played it quite a few times, and I know we all got to play it actually on the Dice Tower Cruise, which was really nice. So I guess we can just jump right into positives and see. I don't know if you guys want to jump in first.
Okay, sure. I'll jump in. Positives, like they already hit on, the components are amazing. They're stellar, especially your edition with the sun drop. Best components I've ever seen in any game ever. And I said that recently, and this one just passed it. So I said that with Merchants of the Dark Road. This one is better, especially your edition. I don't think the camera will get it even justice. Once it's in front of you with a big tray of these chunky components, and on the monuments, they're spectacular. I saw Minerva on the table. I already determined I'm going to get Minerva. That's my goal. I end up winning somehow still, but that was my goal. I want this one right here. It has the bird on her and the tree around the building. Like, I want that. So I'm going to get these cards, give you that. It's a long term. It takes a while to get that one. But anyway, these monuments are fantastic. The production's through the roof. So it's like a 10 out of 10 there. So you're not going to get much better, if at all. So that is a positive. The smooth play, like Andrew already hit on. Smooth play for anyone you want to intro this game. It's perfect for that because you have this amazing box to show them all these amazing components to really impress them right from the get-go. They're thinking they're going to have an epic experience, but it might be too heavy, and they'll be pleasantly surprised when it's not heavy at all. You get to take a card. You know where that building is going to go. You can strategize what you're going to go ahead and place on that board, and how you're going to score, because there's only a few things that you're scoring population, you're getting money, and so forth. So the smooth gameplay is really going to bring a lot of people in. Like somebody like Andrew has actually made the purchase. It's going to bring reward to his friends because they're going to get to play a game that they would never see before. They would never seen anything like this before, and this will be a very good impression upon a new gamer. So
Yeah, right away when we were playing it on the cruise, it was on my list of a game I wanted to play on the cruise. When I had first heard about it, I had already missed the opportunity to back it. I actually had not heard about it when the Kickstarter had launched. So when I was looking into games that potentially I'd want to play on the cruise, I saw it was a city building game, so I was immediately drawn to that and felt it could be a very simple one. Which, in between like brain burning games and learning games on the fly on the cruise, I felt like it was really great. So my first experience with it was amazing because I saw this great looking game and then pair it with something not too hard to just jump into because we were playing. It was the first game we played on the cruise, so that right away was a big sell for me. And I just like a game that it feels competitive. The games we played have been so close. The two that we played felt close, and that was right away a positive for me on that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, I love that it looks so amazing on the table, but it is just a very easy game to learn. It's not heavy at all. I honestly wanted to play it anyway because when I found out you backed it, I'm a big theme person, so I love anything with ancient civilizations, ancient Egypt, ancient Rome. So I thought this was really cool. But I really did not know it was going to be that easy to learn. And so that was a huge plus for me. It just looks so cool on the table, and the components are amazing. And it plays pretty quick.
Right.
It is a lot of stuff out there, but the cleanup is pretty easy too.
Right.
I love that they have they all go in their little spaces and stuff.
Yeah, even for referencing while you're playing so that you can score without, Andrew mentioned this while we were playing, you don't have to look around and try to figure it out. You'll know right away by looking at your board what you've put out already. Yeah, because they put the print on the player board.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome too. It's a good reminder because when you're getting money, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's how much I'm supposed to get.
Right.
So it was
Instead
a
of
good
having to
reminder.
look out on the board and be like, where did I put my buildings? Oh, I can just look and it's printed there, which is nice.
Yeah.
I've already kind of hit on my positives. I guess one thing I will say, yes, I agree that it's deceptively simple. And something I was pointing out, because I had actually played this with non-gamers, and it didn't really hit me, but I could see where they were getting it from. But they compared it to Monopoly. They're like, oh, very similar to Monopoly. You buy properties, you build up on the properties. And so this could be a game that I think might appeal to people who like Monopoly. But yeah, obviously easy setup and tear down. What about negatives? Did you guys have any negatives for the game?
well, if you're comparing it to Monopoly, there's a negative right there.
Right.
A little light. So
Yeah.
if you peel away all this beautiful production and you just have this game, let's say it's a tile placement game, and you're doing the same exact things, am I still going to give it as high of a score? No, I'm not. That production really, really carries this game. Really carries the game. It's still a very smooth design. Emerson Matsuuchi is an amazing designer. He did an amazingly simple game that is an entry level and still looks epic.
Yeah.
So that's a feat in itself. And, gamers, they'll enjoy this game. They will. I think most gamers will. Mechanically, the hardcore gamers, maybe not. Maybe they'll say, you know what, that was fun. That was an appetizer. Let's go play something heavier. So my negative is going to be that. It's going to be, for me personally, it's not my taste. I enjoy my play. I enjoy both my plays. I'll play it again. I'm not eager to play it again. I get the feel. I kind of get it after a couple plays. I see what the game has to offer. Yeah, there are things you can add in. The monuments increased my enjoyment. I was at a 7.5 on the cruise, and I'm going to give my score now before I move on.
Yeah.
I'm at a 7.8. So this is for a light game. That's a good score for me. For a game that I'm not going to really ask for again, but if it's on the table and somebody wants to play it, happy to. It's a great game.
Yeah, I share the same sentiment as Nick. I feel that we play a lot of heavy games. Nick and I do enjoy playing heavier games, but there are times I like to break games up with this. I would play this anytime somebody wanted to play it. I love that I can try different strategies out. I love that there is so much replayability of the game, because it all not only depends on what buildings you're assigning to the board, but also looking at what your opponents are doing. The fact you can change your buildings, and then it can completely change for you, you had an objective at the end of the last game, and then things changed completely at the end, and those buildings were no longer there, and
Right.
you're always sort of interested in also what other people's turns, which I think is a big thing, especially for non-gamer people, to appreciate games where they're really invested in what other people's turns are involved in. So altogether, my score for this is quite high. I'm giving it an 8.2. I had a lot of fun with it, and it is beautiful.
All right. I really can't think of any negatives that I would say with this game. I like the lighter games, with it feeling epic though. So I really can't find any negatives. I will agree though that, it can be definitely without the expansions, it's pretty light. But if you add in the expansions, it does add some complexity to it. So that's always, something that is nice too, because then it feels different every time you play it. So I really enjoyed this game, and I'm going to give it an 8.3.
8.3. All right. So for me, I agree with a lot of what was said. For me, I like that if you are new to gaming, the base game is a great entry point, and if you like something that's a little heavier, you can throw in the modules. Although I am going to say as a negative for the modules, I feel like with some of them, there can be a lot to take that in the game, and that might not be good for new gamers. That creates a lot of conflict, or even Samantha is a player that doesn't like conflict, and so if
I
you're
almost
stealing
brought that up. I
or
didn't
doing
want to
that
be
kind of
petty
stuff,
though, but
right.
I was like, I'll let it go.
Right.
But yeah, I don't like the take that.
Right,
Yeah.
and even with the player roles, I do feel like some are very distinctly better than others. I feel like there is a little bit of maybe a mismatch there, but I do like the different ones. The Monuments definitely increases it for me. I am the highest just because I feel like I love games that are easy to teach. I can set up, tear down, teach real fast, and everybody can have a great experience, and I'm going to give it an 8.7. So yeah, I almost went as high as a 9, but thinking about my negatives, and I will say the insert for the board and the coins and some of the extra module stuff isn't the best, because sometimes that lid comes off and stuff slides around a little bit. But that's, again, pretty minor negatives. You can easily take out the things that I did give it a negative for. But yeah, I'm going to give it a 8.7, pretty high.
Those are the kind of things that I would have to, ask you about, because I don't own the game. I
Right.
can't comment on an insert or things like that. So that's good to have that critique. And I was also going to point out that how big that box is. If you have a lot of games, that's a problem. That's a negative.
Right.
That box is huge. That's a whole shelf. It's
Right.
insane how big that is. But it looks so cool when you open it up. You have those layers of boards.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, here's your green one, and you have all this cool stuff, and you're like, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, I love that tray.
And even though I feel like this game appeals to newer gamers, the possibility of them going out and finding it
Exactly.
and then
It's
buying
not
it,
the
it's a
opposite.
barrier for them to actually get the
Yeah,
game.
there's
Kind of opposite.
Right.
The people that have the space are probably
Right.
not going to get this. The people that don't have the space,
Right.
they're consider getting it.
Right. This is going to be a game where I'm like, hey, play this, and then maybe they'll want to play other games.
Yeah. Can you hold this?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I
Yes.
can borrow it.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
It's
Yes.
almost like we need a whole
You
new
do.
shelf
Yes.
It takes a whole
just
house.
for that. Yeah.
And luckily, you guys like it enough. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's our review of Foundations of Rome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click the thumbs up, and subscribe to our channel for more great videos and reviews. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.